All right, well, welcome to economics. It's chapter one. We're going to figure out what economics is. And so to do this, we're going to start off just by pointing out this article. This is about a woman who is uh, posting on Craigslist looking for a rich husband. It says that she's very um, beautiful and articulate and wants to marry a rich guy. And a billionaire replies to her and says, well, why would I do that? He replies in this very economic way, where he's like, well, why would I marry you when you're just going to get old and your beauty's going to fade, but I'm going to still be a millionaire? He's like, why would I buy that? I could just rent that. And so he's thinking in very economic terms. And so to him, he would much rather find somebody that he gets along with and he cares about than just somebody who is attractive. Now, this is a very economic way of thinking. He's thinking about the costs, the benefits, the trade-offs of different choices that we make, and um, what we're going to do with resources that we have. And so let's look a little more carefully at what economics is. Economics is the study of choices people make to try to satisfy their wants in the world of scarcity. What this means, economics is basically how we decide who gets what. If there are if there's a grand total of $1 million in the world, how do we decide who gets most of that money? Who gets $100,000, who only gets $1? If there are only um, 15 Maseratis in the entire world, who gets those 15 cars? How do we decide who gets them? Is it just who wants them most? Well, that's too subjective. That's too depends on the person. And so how do we figure out where they go? That's the core question in economics, is how do we figure out who gets what and how much of what? So we're talking about spreading out resources. What are resources? Resources are needed to produce goods and services. You need these resources to satisfy wants, things that people want. And so you need to be able to cut down trees to make lumber to build houses that people buy. People want houses. You need to cut down trees to make those houses. So therefore, trees are a resource. It's land. Trees are part of land, which is one of the four resources we'll talk about a little later. Now, people have a limited number of resources. Not everybody in the world can have a mansion and everything they want. Since there is a limited number of amount of things that people can have, we have something called scarcity, which means that there's only so much of something. So like I said, there's only 15 Maseratis in the world. That's a scarce resource. There's not that many of them. But scarce resources can be anything. If me and you are stuck in the desert, then all of a sudden maybe water is a scarce resource. There's not a lot of water around. It's hard to get it. It's scarce. There's a limited amount of access to that resource. When you have scarcity and you have limited access to resources, you end up having to make these choices. So to illustrate this, let's just imagine for a second that you're on a deserted island. Plane crashes, you wake up on shore alone, you have clothes you're wearing, a volleyball, some ice skates, and old VCR tapes. What do you do in the first hour that you're there? Just take a minute and think about it. This is just a thought experiment. Just think about what would you do in the first hour, first 45 minutes to an hour that you were on an island. You don't have to discuss the idea of three people sitting next to you. So things that you might want to do in the first hour you're there. You might want to look for survivors, find water, find food, build a shelter, build a signal fire. You might want to start crying, explore the island. Those are all great ideas. The problem is that they're too great of ideas. Well, you need to find water, but you also need to find food. But you also need to build a shelter, but you also need to build a signal fire. You also should look for survivors and explore the island. And, emotionally, maybe you need to cry. Since you can't do all these things at once, you have scarcity. You have scarcity of your time. You only have a finite amount of time to get things done, and you need to figure out how to do it. Well, since you have to give up all the others of these to choose one of them. So if I'm going to go find food, then I have to give up finding water. I have to give up looking for survivors for an hour. Not permanently, but if I spend 20 minutes looking for food, that's 20 minutes I could have used to build a shelter. And so the thing that you give up is called an opportunity cost. It's very important. If you take one thing from this, take opportunity cost. If you take one thing from this presentation, take opportunity cost. Know what opportunity cost is. It'll help you on the test. It'll help you in the future. It'll help you for a long time. Now, the opportunity cost of finding food is building a shelter. Another opportunity cost of finding food is building a signal fire. So there can be more than one opportunity cost to doing something. Now you make decisions about what you're going to do and what you're not going to do based on whether something is a need or if something is a want. If something is a need, and then it's something that's essential to have. You absolutely must have it. Food. If you don't eat, you will starve to death. If you don't drink water, you will die. A want is something that you really want to have, but you could survive without it. Okay? You really want to have a cell phone, but you could survive without it. That's a want. Now, there are two kinds of wants. One, things that are tangible wants. Tangible, T, tangible starts with a T. It means something that you could touch. Tangible, T, touch. Remember, tangible, T, touch. Okay? Tangible are things you could touch. Tangible wants are cars, books, DVDs, Blu-ray, houses, anything that you can lay your hands on there that is a physical thing in the world. The other kind of want is an intangible want. This is something you can't touch. This is something that is more, it could be more spiritual or emotional or intellectual, but it's not something you could touch. So love, success, feelings of empowerment, confidence, self-esteem, stuff like that. Those are wants, and sometimes you want them just as bad, if not more than tangible wants. A lot of intangible wants, people want more. There are a lot of football players who are already millionaires. They don't care about tangible wants, but man, what they would give to win the Super Bowl. That's an intangible want. To win the Super Bowl, that feeling of success, that, they can buy whatever cars they want. They can't buy that. And so intangible wants are sometimes much more valuable to people. There's a couple definitions real quick. Goods are just physical objects that someone makes. And then services are actions that people provide or perform for another person. And so if my truck breaks down and I need to buy new tires for it, well, buying the actual tires, that's a good. Paying somebody put the tires on my truck, that's a service. So when somebody does something for you, it's a service. When somebody gives you a physical object or you buy a physical object, that's a good. I think we're going to stop there for right now, and we'll pick up in the next video.